Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Bro Talk. In this episode, we're going to continue the same thing we've been doing the past few episodes with this book, The 48 Laws of Power. Now we are on law 17 and 18. So please come and join our dialogue in which we will not only learn but challenge each other today. So, Law 17. These two laws are very interesting. Very interesting. Can't wait to get to the next one. But this one, let's start with the judgment, right? Or the title and then the judgment. So I guess I'll read it.
Yes.
Law 17, keep others in suspense, terror, cultivate an air of unpredictability. The judgment is that humans are creatures of habit with an insatiable need to see familiarity in other people's actions. Your predictability gives them a sense of control. Turn the tables, be deliberately unpredictable. Behavior that seems to have no consistency or purpose will keep them off balance and they will wear themselves out trying to explain your moves. Taken to an extreme, this strategy can intimidate and terrorize.
Nice. All right.
So it's basically reading this law. It basically talked about always remaining unpredictable and never being predictable in your next move, right? Right, and they even talked about this this famous story about a chess champion and how their opponents was always very unpredictable on what he was going to do next, regardless of this person being a chess champion and knowing how to take down individuals. His way of doing it and his strategy was very predictable. So what this opponent did was just counter it with his unpredictability of being late, of being loud, of letting two losses go first, and then coming back and continuing to win, where then this chess champion thought that he was going crazy. Now, saying that, I agree with this chapter, but at the same time, I don't. I think it just all depends on the circumstance and situation.
Okay.
Where I would say being unpredictable is great when you're against your enemies, or when you're in a sporting event, when you're maybe challenging someone, competing with somebody. But I don't think it's good when it comes to friendships or when it comes to family, because in those type of environments, you are in comfort zones where people not only depend on you but trust you. So sometimes when you turn out to be an unpredictable person in those type of circumstances, you become a person where I have to second guess it on what you're gonna do or how you're gonna do it. If you're gonna follow what we agreed on, or are you gonna cancel last minute, or are you gonna back out? Are you gonna flake? Right? So I believe it unpredictability is great when it comes to face and face with the enemy, but when it comes to those comfort zones of family, friendships, it is not such a great quality to have just because there is trust involved in those relationships. What do you think?
Would you also say that unpredictability is bad when it comes to relationships, like romantic ones?
So that's where we have to get into the nuances of things, right?
The way you said it was funny. The
uh,
nuances, sir.
right. Because I guess you got to know how to play your cards, right? Because women love unpredictability for some reason. Where like, you know, oh, he always comes back from work. He always wants to eat at home, and there's no excitement, blah blah blah. And then out of nowhere, you come out of work, baby. Dress up. We're going somewhere nice. I have reservations, so please be ready by 8. Boom. Oh my God, I didn't expect this unpredictability. I'm wet now, right? So let me get
Oh wait,
something.
whoa! We skipped a detail. Whoa, we skipped that detail very quick.
So, you know,
Uh-huh.
unpredictable, but that's good unpredictability in a sense where like you already have created a routine on how we operate in a
Mhm.
relationship or how things are or tend to go about, and to cause a little bit of spark and excitement in within your partner. That's why surprises exist. Surprises are unpredictable, right?
Mhm.
You have to use in a sense this trait when you surprise somebody. So I guess when it comes to those details of a relationship, it could be good.
Mhm.
But other than that, unless you can mention something else,
Mhm.
uh I just don't think it's such, not that it's not a good trait. It just, I don't think it should be used unless it's for a good purpose,
Mhm.
just because of the trust that's involved.
Hmm.
But
Okay. I think, of course, you don't always want to be unpredictable, right? But I do think being unpredictable and family dynamics, romantic relationships at work with against the enemy, if you have your own company, a
hmm
lot of the times it's better than bad, even with family, right?
even with
Because
family, really.
even with family, again, not in everything. Also, like if you're married, if you have a partner or something, right? You don't want you don't want to be unpredictable, let's say in the finances. Hey,
Right.
babe, right? I'm gonna go to the
Uh,
casino, all my savings, I'm gonna double it. Like, whoa, that's not good predictability. Like that's not good unpredictability.
right, right.
And like, and I know you said that unpredictability, makes women like excited, hot for you, but I don't think they'll be hot for you if you try to do that, like with the
Right.
finances, right? And stuff like that.
Unless you come back with double the money, they'll be like, you
Unless you
know,
do, but then maybe yeah, but I don't think she even let you do that. Unless you don't tell her, right? Hey baby, you want to hear the good news or the bad news? Good news. All right, so bad news is we lost all of our money. How? Gambling. What's the good news? Good news is we're gonna move out of this place into the streets. You always talked about moving, so now we're gonna move now.
yeah.
Right. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I actually wrote something on my notes here, on the book here. I
Okay.
wrote, because when I read this law, the first thing that I came to my mind was like, I could see how people might think that this is like Law 17 is a bad thing or it's scary. But I
hmm
don't think we should look at Law 17 as a scary thing because it's about breaking patterns. So other people don't box you in. And that includes family, business partners, just anybody, right? Predictability breeds control. Others can script your responses. I got that somewhere, like in some article online that I saw. I'll read it
hmm
again. Predictability breeds control. If you're predictable all the time, people can control you. And they wrote, others can script your response. So if I know, for example, and I think this is a great analogy, if we're playing basketball one on one, and I know that you're always going to go right, because you can't go left. Again, this is
hmm
like a very basic example. I know you're always going to go right, no matter
Yeah.
what. If I know that, then I can script in my mind. I can adjust my defense, or I know I have better chances of blocking or being in front of you when you shoot from the right, or if it's for a layup, or
hmm
if it's going to be a hook or, a mid shot, whatever, I know you're always going to go there. But if you always switch it, you go right, you go left, you shoot far, right? You push me and you go for a layup. If you're always doing all these things, I can't script your response and I'm going to be scared now because I don't know what you're going to throw me as we're playing, right? So I think what's important, and we could talk about like the romantic component or networking, for most things, it's good to be unpredictable, or you can be predictable for a bit, but then change it up and be
hmm
something else, right? I mean, okay, again, you don't want to become unpredictable that it damages your reputation, it damages on how you view things, it damages your relationship with people. Of course not. I don't mean that. But I think if you can change up things from time to time, and again, when it says unpredictable, now I know like here he's talking about like a lot of times like the bigger picture, but you can even be unpredictable in small things and still catch people's attention, catch them off guard, right? Like
hmm
for example, when it comes to romance, I wrote something
hmm
that another way that you can become unpredictable and keep things, interesting is you always want to show the person new versions of yourself. Always. Big or small, it doesn't have to be big. Well, like what's a small thing? Like maybe one day you change the cologne you wear without telling them, or you change your clothing style a little bit, or you get a different haircut, right? It's something small. You didn't tell them. You surprised them, and it's something new. Ooh, you look different. Oh, you smell different. Like, what's going on, right? Like, why are you changing, right? And you get them on their tippy toes, right? You're showing them a new version of yourself. Or como tú dijiste, or like what you said, you take them to a place that they didn't expect, right? Or
Hmm.
you show them a hidden talent, or you tell them a story they never knew of. You're showing a new version of yourself. You're changing your predictability. The other person romantically cannot script your response, and they're engaged, they're interested, and you just bought yourself some more time. So I think that's one way of doing it romantically.
Okay.
I have another way, but then there's also for like networking and stuff like that. So yes.
Yeah, whatever you said kind of reminds me of what it says in the Keys of Power in page 127.
Okay.
The second to last paragraph. It says this law not, does applies to all. Sorry, this law applies not only to war but to everyday situations. People are always trying to read the motives behind your action and use your predictability against you. You throw in a completely inexplicable move and you put them on the defensive because they do not understand you. They are unnerved, and in such a state, you can easily intimidate them, which is true. Really, even with the example you mentioned with the whole basketball thing, right? If instead of having one way to do things, you can have multiple way to do things. And with the and
Correct.
when you now you put them in a defensive position, they're like, okay, this person can only do this. So you make them think they can only do that, but then you pull off a second move, right? Another like trick in your bag, right? Another move in your bag, and then boom, and now they're like, okay, whoa, and then they might not believe in it. You do it again, and it's
Uh-huh.
kind of okay. Now this person has so many different moves or things to counter with, and sometimes a counter on top of a counter that I don't know how to guard this person
Uh-huh.
because the bag is just filled with multiple and different tricks that is so unpredictable that what this person is going to do, and
Hmm.
that just makes you a fierce opponent in a sense where like now people are intimidated to guard you on defense. So I do see the good of it, where you can intimidate people and in different instances and relationships. I guess I was just viewing it from because we've even talked about this where like sometimes we're like okay we look at a person or maybe they've kind of have kind of engaged with us either in different ways, either in business ways and in friendship ways, and then we'll like slightly evaluate them. We'll be like, you know what, this person is very unpredictable,
Hmm.
and I don't like that because
Hmm.
I don't know what to expect, and that's the bad side of unpredictability. And maybe because, like you said, it has damaged their reputation, and their reputation has shown to be different.
Hmm.
While we can have a conversation about somebody and be like, yo, this person is good because you never know what to expect from them, but in a good sense of things, where like all they bring is positivity,
Hmm.
or they reinforce the business that we're in with their unpredictability. So I guess it all depends on, like we've studied before in different laws, I guess the reputation this unpredictability brings with.
Hmm. Interesting. And I like how you went to page 127, that paragraph, because I also had a star next to it.
Yeah, same.
And if we go back to what you wrote, people always trying to read the motives behind your actions to use your predictability against you. And again, that's normal human nature, right? Humans, we have this need to understand why someone is doing something. Because if you understand why they're doing it, or why they said something, or why they're thinking a certain way, then I can predict, or I'll know why you're doing it. If I know why you're doing it,
Hmm.
right, I can understand you better, right? Like, why do you think people are so into like like mentalism, cold reading, horoscopes, because we're so interested in finding ways, oh, how can I get to know this person better? How can I get to know them better, or how can I get to know myself better? Because we as humans, we're social creatures, we're trying to interact and figure out, why are you doing this? Well, why am I doing that, right? And when I was reading that paragraph in page 127, the,
Hmm.
the the example that came to my mind was a car salesman, right? If you go in to buy a car, let's say at the dealership, you know that the person trying to sell you a car, you know their motives. You know that they'll tell you anything to make you feel good because they're trying to make a sale. But you know that because that's the way they make their money, right? That's how they make their income. So
Okay.
now it's like you can use their predictability against them, right? And that's why you can negotiate with them, and they're willing to negotiate because they're willing to do anything or almost anything to make the sale. So now you can come in and negotiate with them, because if you don't negotiate and you decide to leave, like, I'm not going to buy anything, they're not going to make money. So they're motivated to make the sale. So you can use their motives, their internal things against them, right? But then if we keep reading, it says here, um, and keys to power, page 126, says nothing is more terrifying than the sudden and unpredictable, right? That is why we're so afraid by earthquakes and tornadoes. We do not know when they will strike, right? That's why people, like in movies, when the villain or the good guy, he's unpredictable, people are scared of him because they don't know what he's gonna do, what he's capable of. So if we can do this to our own advantage, be unpredictable in all our aspects of life, where no one's gonna forget us, and we're gonna catch people off guard, and we could win. We could definitely win and get what we want. Um, it says here on page 128, the second to last paragraph, unpredictability is not only a weapon of terror,
Yeah, study.
scrambling your patterns on a day-to-day basis will cause a stir around you and stimulate interest. People will talk about you, ascribe motives and explanations that have nothing to do with the truth, but that keep you constantly in their minds. In the end, the more capricious you appear, the more respect you will garner, or you will take, or you will make. Right? So, again,
So
yeah, yeah, so what's up?
now we like I said earlier in the book as well, we don't want to be like animals, right? Because they are easily able to
Predictable.
hunt, predictable, right? That's why we can hunt and kill them because they operate in patterns, right? So
Correct.
so here, whichever you read, it says scrambling your patterns on a day-to-day basis will cause a stir around you and stimulate interest.
Correct. And as I said in the beginning, the whole point of being unpredictable is what? Is to break a pattern so that other people don't box you in. Right? So like, for example, if someone comes to ask you for money, and you're considered the nice guy, right?
Hmm.
That people can take advantage of. People, that's how people box you in. And then someone might come in and they're gonna ask you for money, right? Like let's say a coworker, and they're like, oh, he's a nice guy. He's gonna say yes anyway, right? And then one day you change it up. They're like, oh, okay. Their perspective of you is gonna change. Now, of course, if this is like a family member and you guys are close and you need the help, that's different. But I'm talking about maybe people who are strangers, or they're not close, then they're not as close to you, right?
Hmm.
Then you'll catch them off guard, and then they're gonna have to double think about you. Their way of thinking of you is gonna change, right?
Hmm.
And I think you should definitely do this in business, right? In networking. I think this is so important in networking because, well, you've been to networking events, right? Or no?
Where didn't we go to one?
I think so, but I'll tell you something. Networking events, right,
Hmm.
have a stereotype that they're boring, they're useless, and that everyone says the same thing. Oh, hi, how are you? What do you do for work? Oh, I do this. What do I do for work? I do this. Nice tie, nice shoes. Like, it's the same BS, the same compliments, the same questions, right? So when I used to go to a lot of networking events, like in Manhattan and Brooklyn and stuff like that, right? Instead of small talk, I would always try to throw in a bold statement, or I would throw in like an insightful thought to catch them off guard, to make sure they always remember me, and that to communicate with them again will be much easier. Because they're like, yeah, this guy blew me away, or he was so interesting. I want to talk to him again, or I want to see what's up with him. For example, and I've learned this along. I forgot where I got from which book I got this from, but there's something called identity framing. right? So instead of saying, "Oh, so what do you do?" "Oh, I'm a physical therapist," and that's it, right? Instead of saying that, right? You could say something like, "So what do you do for it?" Like if someone asks you, you could say, I help people become more independent, or I help people add 10 more years of independence functionality to their social lives. Whoa, what the hell is that? So what do you
Hmm.
do? And I'm framing differently my identity or what I do for work, right? And I think what also helped me was when I was into mentalism. You cold read, you try to guess people's things. So there's a lot of these psychological tactics if you put in, you'll always be different and unpredictable with romance, with friendships, with networking. So I think if you can actively process this mindset and I think the best thing to do is this, and I'll end with this.
Hmm.
If you know where you're gonna go and you can think about how you can be unpredictable and unique, go in already with some ideas on how you're going to do that, then you get there and you take action. And that's it. And if you keep doing that, it will become a habit where it's like you'll always be thinking, how can I be unpredictable and unique? And when you go into these new scenarios or meeting new people, it's just going to happen. It's just going to flow and you'll do that. So, yeah.
It's like basically being different in these cases, right? Because you
Hmm.
you want to stand out,
Correct.
and when you're unpredictable, you stand out. Sure, so.
Correct. Like basically you want to go against the norm. Like what's the normal thing to do in that situation?
Hmm.
Again, not always, but I think a lot of times it does work. So yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, we've seen even in situations of romance, sometimes being very simplistic helps, or
Hmm.
sometimes being very different helps. Where
Correct.
you give a different type of pickup line or a different compliment, and we're like, "Whoa, didn't see that coming." Instead of doing the same old same, your eyes look beautiful, or what regular people would always compliment about, and just being different about it, where you would catch this person's attention. But there's
Mm,
also the other side where, like, some people, some girls may not like that, in a sense,
mhm,
and just some people are just like straightforward, straight to the point. I like you, you're beautiful, want to see if we can hang out,
okay, yeah, I see that, yeah.
right? So I think there's both sides to things, but definitely agree, now that you explained it a little better, um how unpredictability could be a good thing, but there's also a reversal
Mhm,
to it, right? In the reversal, it talks about how predictability can also work in your favor. It says by creating a pattern for people to be familiar and comfortable with, you can lull them to sleep. So the way this author always writes stuff,
it's for the worst.
yeah,
It really
it's
is.
like it's like, oh yeah, it's there's a reversal, but once you get them comfortable, you could poison them in your sleep. Like, it's like, okay, we get it.
Well,
Like,
obviously, yeah.
right. And then he talks about, like, first you set up a smoke screen and a comfortable front behind which you can carry deceptive actions, right?
Mhm.
So, and it talks about a famous fight that there was in the 70s with Muhammad Ali and George Foreman, which is a fight that everyone that is
Talks
into
about.
boxing talks about, how actually many people were scared that Muhammad Ali was gonna lose that fight, just
Mhm,
because Foreman was such like a knockout puncher and Muhammad Ali wasn't. He was more of a, like, tactical, speedy type of boxer.
mhm,
But during those interviews, Ali would always talk about that he was gonna change up his tactic, but no one really believed it was more like a laughable thing. So he came in predictable, where he was announcing how what he was going to do, but
correct.
because he had a reputation of doing otherwise, is why people didn't believe him.
Mhm,
And then when he came into the fight, he didn't come into the fight as he always came into every fight. He came into the fight as he said he was going to, as
mhm,
what he had already told the audience or told his opponent. And because of people not believing him, then he caused a whole confusion for Foreman, and then next thing you know, he ended up winning the fight.
correct.
So I think a lot of this unpredictability can be good, but can also be bad. But it just has to depend on the type of relationship, the trust that's involved in it, uh, the reputation that's behind it, in what area of life on a day-to-day basis are you using this
Mm-hmm.
unpredictability, where it could be good in a relationship where you could call it some type of spark, or in business, in networking, as you said, or it can also be bad because you already have developed a reputation of constantly being a certain way,
Mm-hmm.
where we might want to trust you and maybe do business or have a relationship with you, but we can't do it, or we decide not to do it just because of the unpredictability that it brings.
Yep.
So
100%. So guys,
I,
be cautious out there. Choose your right time to be unpredictable. That's
right,
it.
I I think that makes sense.
All right, can I go to law 18? I'll read the title and the judgment.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
Law 18. Do not build fortresses to protect yourself. Isolation is dangerous. All right, the judgment says, which is on page 130, the
Hmm.
world is dangerous and enemies are everywhere. Everyone has to protect themselves. A fortress seems the safest, but isolation exposes you to more dangers than it protects you from. It cuts you off from valuable information. It makes you conspicuous and an easy target. Better to
Conspicuous.
circulate, I know it's a nice word, better to circulate among people, find allies, mingle. You are shielded from your enemies by the crowd. Nice. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one.
Excellent.
I think you and I have a lot to say about this one.
Yes, I think so, indeed.
So I'm gonna first say this, that I definitely think that there is certain times where isolation can be good, but it's never good for the long term. Isolation is good if you have to, really think about something you did, maybe even in a religious setting, you want to do some repentance, confess to God your sins, or like talk to God in prayer and say, I'm sorry because I did this. And you think about it, you're isolated and you have time to think and, whatever, pray or talk to God, or maybe if you have to help gain a perspective in your life, that's possible. But for the long term, isolation is not good. Actually, isolation is like emotional junk food. That's how I'm gonna compare it. It's emotional junk food.
Hmm.
It tastes very good in the moment because you feel safe and you feel like you have control, but over time it weakens your mind, your relationships, and your resilience. And there is, I think, a lot of psychological things that we could talk about why isolation feels safe, but then I'll talk about psychologically why isolation is actually a trap. So yeah.
I did search up something, and something did come off on my feed when
Okay.
a few weeks ago, which has to do with isolation, right?
Okay.
And I do like what you said, which is true. I do believe in the long term, isolation in every aspect possible is not good,
Hmm.
right? Because you want to be able to build, as you mentioned, you cannot be isolated. It involves being around people.
Yes.
And there's even an article that came out, um, that was on my feed, and I looked into it a little bit. It says it's by the U.S. Surgeon General. It says chronic loneliness and social isolation can be harmful as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Can you believe
Wow,
that?
I did not know that.
Studies show that loneliness increases the risk of premature death up by 26% and is linked to higher rates of heart disease, stroke, dementia, and other serious problems.
Wow. That's serious.
That is serious. Now, that being said, I do believe, and we did talk about this, that isolation slash loneliness can be good,
Yes.
but only in certain aspects of your life, if you go through them.
Hmm.
Meaning, if you've gone through some type of betrayal or some type of grievance in the family or friendships, it's where isolating yourself could be good because it helps you, it gives you time to reflect, to analyze the situation on how to go about next. Either you know how to get over the situation that's affected me, and you know how to move on from it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes not having people around you and having that quiet space could
Mm-hmm.
help you, you know, really think in situations like that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, when you're trying to focus in life, especially as a man, when you want to like really grow and you know be apart and be different from the rest, from the average human being, then that means that you can't be, meaning if you want to get your finances right and have a purpose in life, right, and grow further, you might have to isolate yourself from a lot of activities
Mm-hmm.
that involve you using your income, you use your time. Why? Because you eventually want to be somewhere in life, and all of these things that you want to do now might not benefit you in the long run. It's going to benefit you in the short run
Right.
only. So therefore, being isolated from those activities or from those type of friendships that are only, you know, going to give you that dopamine effect for the short run, is better to isolate yourself from those things. Therefore, in the long run, you can have them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I would say isolation is good,
Mm-hmm.
where it helps you like get your life together and
Mm-hmm.
really reflect on the things that you have to improve on. Therefore, you take step by step, you take the appropriate steps to uh, make sure you accomplish those goals,
Mm-hmm.
meaning the ones in the long run.
Hmm. But you know something, you mentioned the isolation. Like, let's say if you're trying to better your purpose, your finances, your knowledge, whatever. You're saying you have to isolate yourself from certain people and certain activities, correct?
Correct.
From what you were used to, correct?
Correct.
But if you also notice, a lot of people who become successful or who change their pattern of life, yes, they became isolated from what was not good. But you know what they then do? They associate themselves with successful people, which means that they have to make new friendships. They're doing new activities,
Hmm.
right, with new people that's going to get them there, and so forth. So they're being isolated from the past or from what's not going to work, but a lot of times they're going to go to new friendships or new relationships or new networking or new everything with other people that's going to get them there, though. So they're only isolated for a little bit, but they're going to better things with new people.
Correct. But would you say that a person needs an isolation period of time to be able to let go of those old bad friendships or people that were in their life
Hmm.
and be able to differentiate what's the good and the bad, and then now start choosing correctly um, the good friendships, the good habits of the people that are actually going to help them grow? Or is it just an automatic change?
I think it depends on the personality. But I also don't think these people are taking that long. Yes, maybe there's an isolation, right? Like, I don't think they're waiting 5 years. All right, I'm waiting 5 years. Let me like relax and let me realize all my mistakes. And now let me start once I real. No. I mean, I definitely think some people need an isolation period. They take a little mental break, they reset, they realize the mistakes, but then they go out. Because it also depends, like, if you're a person that's saying, I want to change this aspect of my life with my romantic relationships, my finances, what I'm learning, my knowledge, my theological knowledge, right? The world knowledge, whatever you're trying to improve, or you're trying to improve in everything, or a little bit in everything. Time is valuable. We don't get time back, so you also can't take forever because things take a while. Thing takes time,
Hmm.
right? I think it was 𝗕𝗏𝗄 who said, whatever goal you have, and let's say you like, I want to get this done in 6 months. Let's say he always said, always add an extra year to it. A lot of times, just things don't work out, and you need more time before you actually hit the goal. So
Hmm.
yes, there could be an isolation period depending on who you are, Like for that, I don't think Andrew Tate needed isolation periods. I'm just saying, I don't think so. He seems like a very extreme guy that's like from one to the other. Let's do this because I want to hit it to the top,
But
right?
could that be the could a reason be that he always had his brother by his side and always had developed a good relationship, therefore he always had someone that was like
Mm-hmm.
consistently, uplifting him regardless of his downfalls. Yo, you got this, don't worry about it, fuck everybody. And then that one person he could always depend on and then push him up, rather than, let's say, someone loses everything
Mm-hmm.
and maybe that person is not fortunate enough to have a brother or a
Mm-hmm.
sister or any siblings, and it's just very hard for them to like move forward. I'm not saying that you shouldn't, you should,
Mm-hmm.
but like,
Could it be that?
could it have been that?
Well, in the next episode, when we interview Andrew Tate, we can ask him.
Yes, 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 excellent, excellent.
No, maybe. I'm not sure though. I'm not sure. But that's a good question. Maybe, maybe not. I also think it's personalities, but there should be an isolation period if we're talking about what you said, but I don't think it should
Hmm.
be too long. And I think it's important for people to understand isolation is a trap. But now psychologically, why does isolation feel safe, right? And it's because when a person feels threatened mentally, our nervous system, what we try to do, we try to withdraw, get away from the situation because it's just too much for us at the moment. So isolation, and I wrote this, isolation reduces exposure to criticism, conflict, or unpredictability from other people. So our brain sees the isolation as a protection. Obviously, if you're not with people or in a relationship, or you're not trying to build wealth, or you don't have a company, no one's going to judge you. You don't have to be scared of anything, right? And there's no problems.
Correct.
So obviously your brain's gonna be like, wow, I got a break. I like being in this state of mind. I'm gonna stay here, right? And our brain is going to withdraw, right? And when we withdraw, we feel good. So basically, I'm saying that isolation could be a sedative, it could be a drug, because we feel good because we are controlling our environment. And when we control environment, it lowers anxiety. It also lowers how much social interactions we have with people. Because when you're with people, you have to figure out, okay, what are they saying? I have to interpret what they're saying. What's their tone of voice? What's their body language? So again, there's so much things happening,
Hmm.
right? That our brain gets overwhelmed. So when we withdraw and get away, we feel better. So that's why isolation feels amazing. It feels so good for so many. I'm not saying everybody. There's some people who can never be isolated. They love talking, they love being around with people, right? But we got to be careful not to fall for isolation because it can become a trap. It really can. But that's why psychologically this feels amazing. And that's why he is saying, don't build a fortress around yourself. Isolation is dangerous because when you isolate yourself, according to the author, what he's really saying is that, right, you're not going to know what's happening around you. Your circle of friends and allies goes down. You're not mingling. You don't know what people are thinking or what's happening in the crowd's mind or in your company. You have no idea what's happening. If you're ignorant and if you're not in it, you don't know how to plan for things. Then guess what? You can't really maneuver and you can't get to your goals. So yeah.
Right. Okay. So I would see this in an interesting way.
Go.
Life is not a game is not a game of isolation. It's a game is it's a game of team.
Mm-hmm.
Reason I would say that is because there's always a lot of advice. There's advice for both of these sides, but I only agree with one. With, you know, be a lone wolf, right? Because you can always have your own back. Where like, but and you can achieve success by yourself, even if it's financial success, you could do it by yourself. But it's a much harder route
Mm-hmm.
because, like you mentioned, the unpredictability of others, the how others want to take you down. If you isolate yourself so much that you don't have an idea of what's going on around you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you put like a lone wolf versus a pack of wolves, who's going to win that fight?
Pack of wolves.
The pack of wolves. Why? Because it's not just one, it's a team. So if one person doesn't see something, the other person sees it, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
why there's also the advice, build a great team, build a great brotherhood, in the sense where if I don't see something, the other person will. And we have this relationship and this trust that could, build build empires together.
Mm-hmm.
So I do see how the game of life should be played in as a team game, not as an ISO game, because you can only do so much playing ISO versus playing with a team. You could get much further. And it was interesting because also in the Keys of Power, it also mentions this, where how isolation, it says, is designed to defend you. The fortresses actually would cut you off from help into your flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
It may appear what's the word, impregnable, but once you retire to one, everyone knows where you are, and a siege does not have to succeed to turn your fortresses into a prison.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just really thinking about what you said, how psychologically it feels like a safe space, because you don't have to deal with any problems or drama. But the moment where the enemy wants to attack you, you'll never know it's coming,
Mm-hmm.
because this person was planning and planning and planning while you were just remaining away, as if that was going to be a good thing, but ended up turning out as a bad thing, because you might have been
Yeah.
healthier psychologically or safer psychologically, but the moment you put yourself out there, now it's hell,
Mm. Mm.
because you don't know what to expect.
Hmm. So, do you agree then that you should build a great team? You should build a great brotherhood. You should build a great company with a team of people. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay.
To
So that you do agree with all that, right? And is building
an extent. To an extent.
even to an extent, you still agreeing more than not agreeing. So if I said build a great brotherhood, right?
Hmm.
But obviously, you know that a community, a brotherhood, a team, there's always going to be drama, always. Okay, again, you can't blame the whole brotherhood or the whole community or the whole team for a couple individuals and their drama. You can't, right? So, is it still worth it to not be isolated and to build that, in your opinion? Even with drama, that's always gonna come. You're never gonna get away from that, Aaron. You're never gonna get away from that. You know that.
I guess it just depends what you want to achieve in life.
Okay, but I'm talking about you. You want to achieve big things.
I guess it depends. Oh, you're talking about me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because you're right. If you want to be a lonely gamer, right, and just reach high levels
it,
on the GameCube or on a PS5, then yeah, you're right. You don't have to deal with a lot of the stuff. You're right.
it wouldn't bother you to be
Be alone.
isolated,
To be
right?
isolated, not healthy, but still. And even then, they're not. He's not really isolated. That person's not isolated because you played all these video games of online groups, online chats, online communities. I mean, you don't see people, but you still have groups of people to play with. So still,
Yeah, yeah. I feel like it's if
what's so I didn't say anything.
if we would have to put things into perspective and which one would be better, it would be definitely it wouldn't be a 50-50, it would be like a 51-49. It's just not, I'm not saying 49% isolation and 51% no isolation. And the only reason I'm a little biased is because I've seen how isolation has worked to my benefits in
Hmm.
other aspects of my life, right?
Hmm.
Where it's actually grounded me. I've been able to focus. I've been able to, you know, really put an emphasis on the finances of my life and the investments.
Hmm.
where I've put activities and people to the side temporarily
Mm-hmm.
because have I want to complete achievements of my life and have that success.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had to be, or I've forced myself to be isolated, and I have found peace
Mm-hmm.
and focus while doing it. But it does bring a con, which it could be loneliness. But I do believe that once you have focused on those things and make them good habits that are part of your life now, that's where you could be like, okay, now I can open up back to the real world in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
and look for these good friendships, these good people that can help me, strive even faster or move forward.
But now I'm not gonna say specifically what you're talking about, but I'll say in general terms. But I think you'll understand. But I also want people to understand what I'm saying, so I'll try to be very ambiguous about this. I know what aspects of your life you're talking about that you had to be isolated from, and it did help you. It did,
Hmm.
but I don't think it was like you became isolated and all these things, and it helped you focus on everything else. I think the focus of different aspects of your life, the focus just changed. And by the focus, what I mean is that before, certain parts of
Hmm.
your life were isolated because the focus was not there. But now, because other parts of your life have been isolated, and maybe a lot of it has not been because of you, you were forced into it. Now the attention span or the focus was somewhere else where previously it wasn't. So, for example, you love your job, right? And you're involved. You're not isolated there. You have a great group of guys that you work with. You guys help each other out. I've seen where you work at. You guys help each other out, and it's very healthy. Um, I know there's like sometimes some drama, not so often, but it is there from time to time. But you've thrived. But look, you've thrived in that area, right? But guess what? You were not isolated though. You were not isolated. Yes, other parts of your life, there's less focus. You became isolated. And because you focus more on work and working, because of the result of not being isolated at work and in your career, you got better with the money stuff. But that's not because you got isolated, Aaron. That's because the focus was somewhere else. And when the focus was somewhere else, it was not isolation. It wasn't. Think about that. It's interesting, right? Page 133 said that.
No, it is true.
All
It's a
right,
good.
I'm right. Bye. Take care, guys.
No, it's there's some truth behind that. Truth behind
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
Where and maybe it wasn't the isolation, it was just the focus, but certain situations in my life that made me isolated, either by choice or not, helped me focus on those things more.
Well, yeah, because it was by default, right? And you didn't have a choice. But when you went there, because of because you were not isolated at work, because I've seen you work hard and you do a lot of things at work, right? I mean, also because you're the manager there, right? You're the person in charge. Because you were not isolated and you got involved in this world and that, can I call it the blue collar world? No, right? No,
Yeah,
what's the
yeah,
better?
yeah.
Okay,
It is a
because
blue
you got
collar.
involved in the blue collar politics and blue collar world, look what happened. By
Yeah.
default, your money got better with your finances, your investments, everything you said. But you were not isolated. You were involved. Now, maybe these other parts of your life, you've been isolated, and I'm not gonna say what it is, but that you haven't thrived there. Now, certain parts you cannot thrive there because it takes two people to make it better, right? But in other parts where you can thrive, you haven't put in the work to thrive there yet. But if you know that if you did, you would thrive there. You know that.
True. So you would say in every aspect of life, it is important to not be isolated?
Yeah, of course. There's no successful person made it to the top alone. It's impossible.
Agreed.
Nobody.
But we're not talking about the success only part. We're talking about every aspect of life. There's never a moment where isolation plays a bigger part
Than being
being with.
than being not isolated.
Yeah.
I mean, again, of course, like if you broke up with someone, again, I think short term, I said it before, short term, maybe, yes. If you broke up with someone and you're going through grief and you're sad and maybe you need some isolation to emotionally heal. Yeah, of course. But for them, I think for every aspect of life, the long term, don't be isolated. Maybe short term, maybe because you need a reset, you need to learn something, reflect, and yes, 100%, yes. But I think every aspect of life, you should not be isolated. You really shouldn't. Especially the more successful you want to be, the bigger goals you have, you can't be isolated. You got to be involved with people and things.
It makes
And
sense.
I learned this one thing from what was his name? Rabbi Friedman, this famous rabbi on YouTube. He said this once. He said God made the world or like society in a way where it's like we have to interact with people. No matter who you are or how shy you are, at some point you're going to have to interact with someone else from a different religion, a different culture, a different country, different skin color. But that's the whole point, is to interact with the world around you so you can become a better person. That's just how that's just how the system is made. So I just think that that's an interesting way of looking at it. So yeah, so I would say yes. At the end of the day, you need to not be isolated unless it's for short term or for a very specific reason or a very traumatic, acute event, probably. Or as I mentioned before, maybe you're trying to pray to God and do repentance, you alone with God in your own little time. Again, but again, all short term, all short term.